Hi, how's it going? I hope you're having a great day. This week I wanted to talk about the mind, body, spirit connection. And sorry, I just ate. And what that means as a whole, okay, and how those things can interact. I think in this video I'm just going to do a summary of it, and then over the next few weeks I'm going to dive more into each category, so that there's a better understanding of what I'm talking about at any rate with regards to those different categories. Okay, so we'll start with the obvious, the mind, right? What is our mind? Well, our mind is in our brain, for sure. Our mind, well, it is our brain, but our brain does other things outside of our consciousness, okay, or even our unconscious or subconsciousness. The brain has automatic functions like making sure our heart is pumping. That to me is not a mind category, if you will. When I'm referring to the mind, I'm talking about the things that we can impact, that we can morph, change, or the things that get programmed in us from a very young age. And when I say program, I'm talking about how we're shaped. Okay, I'm not talking about anything nefarious. We program ourselves depending on what beliefs we choose to hold and how we choose to feed them. Okay, so the mind is where we do our thinking. It's where we hold memory. It's where we hold these behavioral patterns and the belief systems we have and hold around those. Okay, so the mind is kind of, I don't even know if you would say engine. Maybe it's the control panel, if you will. The mind is the control panel in like a vehicle or some kind of mode of transportation, okay? Then we have our spirit, okay? Our spirit, and can be used synonymously with emotions, essence, okay? And it all really kind of filters down back to what we hold in our mind around belief systems. So people that are very spiritual, or even people that are religious, because they're not necessarily the same thing, okay? But they can feed each other as far as enlightenment and helping to form a foundation, okay? But in any case, for purposes of this video, the spirit is what kind of makes life worth living, right? It is our emotions. It is our passions. It is our, basically, our energy, okay? But I often use energy synonymously with emotions because that is what we kind of put out into the world, is how we feel, right? That is energy. And it comes up from our essence. It comes up from inside. It can be projected onto us, for sure. Absolutely. But this is why when we have a good understanding of what we are at baseline and how we interact with things and how things make us feel, then we have a better understanding of how much is mine and how much is what's going on around me, or how much is this somebody kind of harshing my vibe, if you will. It's an old term. Sorry. Well, not really, because I love to laugh. And laughter is a way to also project energy, but in the opposite way. See, we usually associate projection with negativity. I'll get into this more when we work on spirit, or when I discuss that as a video, but we can impact our surroundings in a positive way too, okay? Now, don't get me wrong. If you're really happy and everyone around you thinks life is miserable or they're unhappy, they may resent you for it for no reason other than the fact that you are triggering them emotionally. That's their opportunity for growth, not your responsibility. At the end of the day, if more people went inwards and worked on themselves, the world would be a happier place because we wouldn't feel responsible for everyone else's happiness or lack thereof. Okay? It's not our job. I actually was interacting with a friend on Facebook yesterday, and then I kind of made a post on my Integrative Transformations Facebook page, but I was talking about, well, they had asked a question about responsibility of adult children over parents who maybe made poor decisions in their life and are miserable, right? Now, I was responding more from an emotional responsibility place, okay? Like doing things out of obligation because we want someone to be happy. Well, that's not across the board. Just because you bring life into the world does not give you carte blanche to treat people any way you want and then expect that you're going to get some level of taken care of. You know, because not everyone had wonderful parents. Just say it. Not everyone. That doesn't mean, and this is what I always mean by saying, be mindful of the energy behind your motivations or whatever it is, your actions or whatever it is you feel compelled to do in life. If you are doing something because you want to look good, if you are doing something because you're ashamed if you don't, or you feel guilty if you don't, right? That's not the energy you want to bring into anything. And oftentimes that's not even yours to hold. That was put on you. And I see it far too many times. I used to see it when my son played hockey. And you could say this about any sport, but sometimes parents try to live vicariously through their children. If they had regrets, then they want to make sure their kid does what they didn't get to do. But that may not be what their kid wants to do, okay? That's just one small example. But when I'm talking about spirit, I'm talking about the energy. What is motivating you to show up in whatever it is? Is it ego-based? Is it just negativity as a whole? Is it somebody else's belief systems that you don't necessarily agree with, but you don't want to be ostracized or this, that, or whatever? If you're honestly doing it out of a genuine heart, like usually if I'm in a place where I can give or help someone and they ask me and I do it, or if I just do it out of the kindness of my heart, there's not a lot of expectation as to whether there's going to be a level of reciprocity there, because you're doing it from a place of giving. Okay. How much you are clinging to a particular outcome speaks to those stories I talked about 2 videos ago. Okay, expectations. If you're holding expectations and creating stories around scenarios that then leave you disappointed by somebody else's actions or inaction, then that again is an opportunity for growth, because we want to look at that. That's part of that going in when you hear me talk about going in. Okay, is looking at those things and taking self-accountability of how much am I creating suffering in my own life through expectations, through the stories I tell myself around things, holding on to or chasing certain responses or belief systems. Okay, and we all do it. We all do it. So please understand, when I'm talking about these things in videos, these are things, yes, I apply stuff that I learned in school. I apply things that I've learned in life. But most of these things are things I've either witnessed or experienced in my own life, but am willing to go in and call myself out. Okay? And that's where healing happens. When you recognize that not everything you perceive is happening to you that's bad is somebody else's fault. And it's not about fault, because then that's shaming, right? And that speaks to spirit. what energy am I holding myself in? Am I holding myself in shame and therefore feel obligated to behave in certain ways that don't necessarily make me happy, but because that's what I feel I deserve, or that's what I feel needs to happen in order for me to earn love? These are questions we all need to sit with. What's motivating me? And what feels good? And some people are afraid to find that out because maybe they do feel shamed into certain choices that make them not so happy. So they try to escape from emotion. Emotions are just there to tell us something about what we're experiencing, both internally and externally. Okay. And oftentimes we misinterpret what they're trying to tell us. So this is why it's really important to spend enough time with yourself to find that baseline so that you understand what is coming outside of me and what am I putting on myself. And it doesn't always have to be negative. Some people are just looking for someone to smile at them. And if you smile at them, that could make their whole day. I remember one time, it was shortly after my parents divorced, and it was before I went to boarding school. So I was probably about 10, 11, I was about 11 years old. And we had moved back to the city because, it was an ugly divorce. It was ugly. We were dealing with two fairly unhealed people. Not bad people, just trying to figure out their lives. Okay, and had 2 kids in tow. So in any case, my brother, who was 2 years older than me, my big bro, we were very close growing up. We still are actually going to get together in another week on vacation. I'm looking forward to that. But in any case, he was having a really depressed day. He was 13 to my 11. And his whole world had been uprooted, and so had mine. But I've always processed things a little differently. I always look for the butterflies that get me through. I always have. And that's probably why I am happy, even amidst the storms that I've gone through in my life. And that's the mindset, the mind. As we heal the mind in the way we think, the way we perceive, not the things that we know to be true or stuff, but just how we experience life, it opens us up to a different spiritual or emotional capacity experience that can create that happiness for us. Okay. But in any case, he said to me that day, he was like, I'm ready to give up. Everyone here's so mean. That's probably why I hate cities, because I remember just our experience of going from a suburb to the city. And it was us also at a time when that city was kind of going downhill. It has since revived in a lot of ways, but it's just, I'm not a city girl. I'm not. I prefer sitting outside, listening to my birds. Okay, that's me. But in any case, he was really sad that day, and he was expressing to me that he just didn't like his life at that moment and was sad. And he was like, I'm going to try and smile at one more person, and if they don't smile back, I give up. And it was really sad. It's sad for me now thinking about it. At the moment, I was a little scared. But now thinking back, I'm like, that's sad for a 13-year-old to feel that way. But in any case, we were going to like a community pool. I know. But as we were walking to it, this man, I swear he was an angel. I do. He came out of nowhere and specifically targeted my brother. And he looked at him with this radiant smile. And he was like, how are you? I hope you have a great day. It was like over the top, and it lit my brother up like 1,000 stars, honestly. And the guy winked at me. I'm going to tell you, he was an angel. He winked at me and gave me kind of like a pat on my shoulder. And my brother was just so happy that day because it restored his faith in humanity, which is what an angel would do, right? So, in any case, we can put goodness into the world. We can elevate people and make them happy too, but that's not our obligation. Our obligation is to find our own happiness so that that just naturally happens. Because the happier I am, how am I not going to influence somebody around me who is looking for someone who's happy? At the same time, you can trigger people too who are miserable and think everyone should be miserable. Because if I can bring you down, that's going to make me feel better, which is a very toxic way of looking at it and requires healing. So if someone's actually triggered by somebody's happiness, then that says something about their own internal need for work. And then last but not least, you have the body, okay? And that encapsulates both our mind and our emotions, our spirit, right? So how we take care of our body, it doesn't always have to be traditional exercise, because that's usually what people think when you think take care of your body. Well, I'm going to watch what I eat and I'm going to work out. That's fine, but that's not always where people are starting, okay? Sometimes people have to start somewhere else because maybe they can't work out. Maybe they have so many food allergies that it's so hard to even be able to follow a healthy diet. Or, I mean, I hope that makes sense. I mean, I would think, you cutting this out and that out, that's probably healthier than what options there are, but I don't know. Everyone's different. Everyone's chemistry is a little different, and what fuels them is going to be a little different, okay? Work with your provider. But in any case, it goes beyond that. It could be just how we give ourselves self-love. Do we hug ourselves? Am I hugging myself? Am I doing things that make me happy? It doesn't always have to be pushing myself to the extreme, because again, not everyone can do that. But maybe it is just going for a leisure walk, or maybe it is getting your hands and feet into the sand or into the dirt and gardening or stuff like that. Tangible things that you can do with your body. Like yesterday, I've been going for an infrared sauna every week because, whatever you may believe, I give credit to astrology, because for thousands of years that was our medicine, was medical astrology and other things, at least for good parts of the world. But that's neither here nor there. This isn't a history lesson. Like for me, I have Leo in my 6th house. 6th house is your body. That's how you heal. That's your health and everything else. Leo is the sun, right? It's beautiful energy of strength and sun and all this other stuff. So for me, the sauna is so therapeutic for me. I sweat things out, sweat out toxins, not to be gross. I just thrive on it. Like first thing in the morning, I still get outside and just let the sun hit me. And it just makes me feel good. And we hear a lot about how the sun isn't good for us, and there are things that we have to be cautious with. However, it actually is the cure for a lot of things. Just saying. You just have to find balance, okay? Nothing out here is all or nothing except nothing, okay? In any case, it's those joyful things that make you feel good inside, okay? But yesterday I did my infrared sauna, and then I sat for a little bit in my car with the AC and I just relaxed. And then I went to my salt room therapy meditation. It was just a meditation. I go for like 45 minutes, but I'm starting to book them back to back because it's a really nice recovery afterwards. And then I go home and I take my shower and do whatever I gotta do. And they are in 2 different locations, but this has been a fun thing that I do now for myself. And I love that. It makes me happy to give back to my body in some way. Also, some things we can do for our body is working on our nervous system and working on releasing fascia in our body that holds trauma and tension, that can create and span out in our body in ways that we may have pain in our leg, but it's originating in our lower back, right? There's just so many different connections we can make in our body, on top of in our emotions, on top of in how we're thinking, and how those three things interact with each other. And are we finding balance there? So this is just, again, I'll get into each one of those categories a little more detailed, and there'll probably be some redundancy over the next few videos. But I just wanted to give a summary of those three and how that makes us up as a human being, okay? Hope this helps. As always, you know, take what makes sense, and if it's not for you right now, that's okay too. That's okay too. But if it is for you and you think it can help, please share, like, subscribe if you're not subscribed. Always greatly appreciated for the channel and for getting the message out there. And I'm wishing you all the best. And for the fathers out there and the mothers that are both mom and dad, I say that to moms too on Mother's Day, and I say it to dads because there are some amazing fathers out there that wear two hats too. And for you, I'm wishing you a very happy Father's Day this weekend, and I hope you're able to take care of yourself and enjoy your day, okay? So have a wonderful weekend, and I'll talk to you again soon. All right.